Long queues of ticket buyers ahead of Sunday's resumption of high-speed rail service between the city and mainland. Up to 5,000 train tickets in each direction a day will be available to the travelling public. And in the UK, ambulance workers continue their strike as another union plans more actions next month. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The Hong Kong section of the high-speed rail will resume operations on Sunday with short-haul trains available first. Up to 10,000 tickets a day, including trips in both directions, are up for sale online or at ticketing booths. Hordes of people who prefer to buy them in person flock to West Kowloon Station, leading to long lines and chaos at times. Jacqueline reports.
With the comeback of the high-speed rail service, its Hong Kong terminus in West Kowloon was abuzz with large crowds hoping to grab a ticket for a ride up north. Long lines built up from around noon, 2 hours before ticket sales began here. But it's not easy to score a ticket with a time slot you prefer. You had to beat the crowd and staggeringly long queues. Many couldn't contain their excitement after securing a ticket. This lady says she had been lining up since 10 a.m., but the 4 hours of waiting time was well worth it. After all, she waited for 3 years before the border reopened. But not everyone was as patient. Frustration boiled over when some were accused of cutting the queue with police being called to the site. Complaints of unfairness too, as online sales for the high-speed rail tickets began at noon. That's 2 hours before they were available for sale at the ticket counters. With the daily cap of 10,000 tickets or 5,000 in each direction, tickets to board the first train to Guangzhou South were all snapped up within half an hour after sales began. This man was told tickets were sold out after a lengthy wait, lamenting it was a big waste of time for citizens. The rail operator has yet to respond to media queries over why there was a 2-hour discrepancy between the start time of ticket sales online and in person. Jacqueline, TVB News.
Meanwhile, passengers will be able to go through the gates at West Kowloon Station and board the trains with their e-tickets linked to their travel documents. The same practice is being adopted throughout the nation's high-speed rail network. But travellers who are not familiar with the mainland's 12306 ticketing website may have to overcome some challenges first.
Starting this Sunday, passengers can pass through the gates with just their travel documents that are linked up with individual ticket information. There will be 10 self-service channels and 6 other channels with staff assistance in the departure hall. The overall handling capacity is expected to double the one before the station suspended service in 2020. Residents can complete real name ID verification at the ticket counters, while home return permit holders can access through self-service channels. Passengers must use their travel documents to board the trains, and they can refer to their text messages or ticketing website for seat information.
We do have staff assistance channels, as well as we have counters in the stations. For those who are not, particularly good at using maybe mobile app or website, they can definitely come to the stations and we'll help them. We have appointed travel agent to help to sell tickets.
So what else is new in the station? There's bigger signage, a new taxi ticket system, and new delicacies. But remember, you're not allowed to bring along your hand sanitizers with you on your trip.
But getting tickets online may not be hassle-free after all. The English version of the China Railway website 12306 doesn't seem to be working. Switching to the Chinese version, ticket buyers will first need to register as a member and have a Hong Kong or mainland phone number to receive text messages. TVB reporters did register successfully but failed to pass the verification process. We then registered our names in simplified Chinese characters. We were successfully verified. But as our registered phone number has not received an authentication text message, we failed to purchase a ticket.
The high-speed rail will only provide short-distance routes to and from Shenzhen and Guangzhou during the first phase of the resumption of services, with a total of 77 round trips per day. A new line to Guangzhou East will be introduced. Travellers wishing to travel to other mainland provinces will have to transfer at Guangzhou South or Shenzhen North Station. Mimo Senga reports.
After a lengthy COVID-enforced break, Hong Kong will reconnect with the mainland's high-speed rail network on Sunday. During the first resumption phase, there will only be short-distance routes. There will be a route between West Kowloon and Futan and Shenzhen North, reaching Guangzhou South via Kumenjian, Humen, and Qingshan. In addition, the newly added route between West Kowloon and Guangzhou East will pass through Dongguan South and Dongguan stations, going directly to the city center of Guangzhou. However, it is unclear when the middle and long-distance line trains will resume service. The MTR said passengers can transfer at Guangzhou South or Shenzhen North stations if they need to travel to other mainland provinces. Meanwhile, with the newly added services between Hong Kong and Guangzhou East stations, some Guangzhou residents said it will be more convenient. This woman said she will visit Hong Kong more often with the new facility, as she likes to shop there. Still, not everyone would choose to travel via Guangzhou East station. This man said he prefers the old station, Guangzhou South, which he is more familiar with. While passengers can get to other mainland provinces via Guangzhou South Station, it is located 25 kilometers away from the central area of Guangzhou. Mimosanai, TVB News.
Chukong Shipping will resume its ferry services between Hong Kong and Nansha in Guangzhou tomorrow. To celebrate the relaunch of services, the shipping company is issuing 200 free tickets to board the vessels. Each person could get 2 tickets under real name registration. The company will also offer half-price tickets for ferries departing from tomorrow to Sunday from Hong Kong to other mainland cities. There will not be a quota for travelers on the sea route. Hong Kong reported 9,208 COVID cases today. Among the imported infections, almost 300 were imported. 25 residents and 1 staff member were infected across 24 elderly and disabled homes. 868 cases were reported from over 500 schools. 1 case involving the BF.7 strain, 2 cases of the XBB strain, and 3 cases of the BQ.1.1 strain were detected. 74 more people succumbed to the virus. Starting today, eligible non-Hong Kong residents can visit private medical facilities to receive bivalent vaccines at their own expense. Overseas, the Public and Commercial Services Union in Britain will hold a strike on February 1st. The union has 100,000 members across government departments. This as certain sectors continue to take a strike action, such as ambulance workers who held a second day of strikes on Wednesday. Matthew Brake reports.
Ambulance workers, including paramedics, call handlers, drivers and technicians, were into a second day of action in a dispute over pay and conditions. Thousands of staff across England and Wales staged walkouts after talks with Health Minister Steve Barclay failed to produce a meaningful breakthrough.
So the Secretary of State's now really clear. He's acknowledged that he understands that resolving this dispute isn't going to be a case of talking about pay for the future. It's going to need making improvements to the current pay year. That means making us an offer that improves pay ahead of April the 1st.
There were small signs of progress in the talks. Healthcare unions want proper negotiations.
The Secretary of State made a commitment that he would come back to us and confirm whether that was going to happen. Let's see whether it does.
Britain is experiencing a wave of industrial action as pay rises fail to keep pace with inflation, hot in double digits. Nurses, ambulance staff and rail workers are among those who have staged walkouts. Many schools in Scotland were closed by a teacher walkout. The British government introduced legislation to Parliament on Tuesday that would mandate key public services to maintain a minimum safety level during strike action by workers. At Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, Rishi Sunak responded to Labour leader Keir Starmer on opposing such legislation.
But he talks about what's terrifying, Mr. Speaker. What's terrifying is right now. What's terrifying is that right now, people not knowing whether when they call 999, they will get the treatment that they need. Now, Mr. Speaker, in Australia and Canada and the US, they ban strikes on blue light services. We're not doing that. All we're saying is that in these emergency services, patients should be able to rely on a basic level of life-saving care. Why is is he against that, Mr. Speaker?
The strikes in the healthcare service come at a time when there has been a surge in demand for urgent or emergency care. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Britain and Japan have signed a defence agreement in London that will allow forces from both countries to be deployed on each other's soil. The Reciprocal Access Agreement was inked by British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida at the Tower of London. It is Japan's first defence agreement with a European country and allows for joint military exercises. The agreement has been in the works for years and was discussed when Kishida met then Prime Minister Boris Johnson last May. The two G7 nations last month joined with Italy on a new fighter jet program. Japan currently holds the presidency of the G7, and Kishida is on a week-long trip, visiting allies including Italy, France, Canada, and the United States. The United States and Japan have unveiled plans to strengthen their alliance in the Indo-Pacific against challenges to the rule-based international order. The American presence on the Japanese island of Okinawa will be reconfigured. The 12th Marine Regiment will be turned into a smaller, more mobile unit designed to fight an adversary and defend the U.S. and its allies in the region. Japan will start constructing 2 runways on the southern island of Magashima, where joint operations and exercises will be held. Speaking in Washington ahead of a visit by the Japanese Prime Minister, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken emphasized the importance of the U.S.-Japanese alliance.
I think what you're seeing in real time is an alliance that is modernizing, and the United States and Japan are working in lockstep to be prepared for the emerging challenges in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. So we could not be more pleased with the work that we're doing together.
Still ahead on tonight's news. Russia names a new commander for its invasion of Ukraine. In the US, the FAA blames a corrupted database file for nationwide grounding of flights. And locally, a drill to enhance emergency preparedness in case of a radiation leak at the Daya Bay nuclear power plant. Welcome back to TVB News. Russia has appointed a new head of what it calls its special military operation in Ukraine amid growing frustration on the battlefield. Meanwhile, fighting rages on in the eastern town of Soledar as Poland pledged to send German-made Leopard tanks to Ukraine to help bolster Kiev's war effort. Daniel Rell tells us more.
Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has appointed Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov to oversee Moscow's military campaign in Ukraine. Gerasimov, like Shoigu, has faced sharp criticism from Russia's hawkish military bloggers for multiple setbacks on the battlefield and Moscow's failure to secure victory in a campaign the Kremlin had expected to take just a short time. Only last October, Moscow had put Sergei Surovikin, nicknamed General Armageddon by the Russian media for his reputed ruthlessness, in overall charge of Ukraine operations following a series of counteroffensives by Ukrainian forces that turns the tide of the conflict. Surovikin will now stay on as a deputy of Gerasimov. Leaders of Ukraine and Poland laid flowers in the city of Lviv, the burial place of soldiers who died fighting for the independence of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Polish President Andrzej Duda visited the memorial of the soldiers of the Ukrainian Galician Army and the memorial of the Lviv Eagles at the Lykhakiv Cemetery. Duda and Zelensky laid wreaths and prayed by the graves of fallen soldiers. Earlier on Wednesday, Duda and Zelensky also held a meeting in Lviv with Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda within the so-called Lublin Triangle of Mutual Cooperation. Duda said his country is willing to send German-made Leopard tanks to help Ukraine as part of a larger international coalition. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
Thousands of flights across the United States were cancelled or delayed after a system that offers safety information to pilots failed. The government has launched an investigation into the breakdown that grounded planes from late Tuesday until mid-morning Wednesday. Tracy Furness has more.
The world's largest aircraft fleet was grounded for hours by a cascading outage in a government computer system known as the Notices to Air Missions, or NOTAM, cancelling more than 1,200 flights and delaying 8,500 more on the East Coast alone. From Newark, New Jersey.
I'm really upset, but what can I do?
But it makes you kind of nervous. Is there something else that maybe we're not being told right now?
To Boston's Logan International Airport, travelers had mixed feelings.
I would rather them ground the flights than risk something up in the air happening that's bad.
More than 21,000 domestic flights were scheduled to take off Wednesday in the US and 1,840 international flights. Airports in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York and Atlanta saw 30 to 40% flight delays. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, said a preliminary review traced the problem to a damaged database file, which also corrupted the backup file. This prevented airports from filing updated safety notices that warn pilots of potential hazards, such as runway closures, equipment outages, and bad weather.
So what I understand is that yesterday a backup system went into effect and the main system came back online. It was over the course of the night, kind of in the middle of the night, that it became clear that there were still issues in the accuracy of the information that was moving through the node of the system.
Buttigieg said his agency will now try and learn why the system went down. Longtime aviation insiders could not recall an outage of this magnitude caused by technology failure. Even though the system was fixed by mid-morning Wednesday, the delays caused a snowball effect throughout the country. Flight schedules are not expected to get back to normal till Thursday. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In the U.S., a second batch of classified documents belonging to President Joe Biden was reportedly discovered by his aides at a new location. The news emerged 2 days after the White House said a small number of documents with classified markings were found at one of Biden's former private offices in Washington, D.C. This report from NBC News.
Tonight, the controversy over President Biden's handling of classified information is growing. Revelations a second batch of classified documents has been discovered by aides to the president, this time in a different location from where the initial documents were found. A person familiar with the matter tells NBC News. Just yesterday, the president defending his handling of classified material.
I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. We're cooperating fully.
Still unclear when these new documents were discovered and if Biden attorneys are still searching for more. Now, top Republicans are calling for Attorney General Merrick Garland to appoint a special counsel, the same action he took in response to former President Trump's handling of classified documents that were seized from his Mar-a-Lago home.
Garland, if you're listening, if you thought it was necessary, Attorney General, to appoint a special counsel regarding President Trump, then you need to do the exact same thing regarding President Biden.
The original classified documents, less than a dozen, were found by Biden attorneys a week before the midterms in an office Mr. Biden had used as a private citizen after leaving the vice presidency. They were then handed over, but not disclosed publicly until just this week. While the Trump and Biden cases share similarities, the White House notes key differences, including that the Biden documents were not the subject of an archives request and that once they were discovered, they were quickly turned over. But Republicans are demanding answers in the Biden case.
Why does his Department of Justice treat people differently? Every time we find something that comes up before the election dealing with Biden's family, it's pushed under the rug.
Tonight, we pressed the White House.
Does it undercut the president's promise of transparency that these documents were not revealed for several months after the White House discovered them?
But look, so when his lawyers realized that these documents were there, they turned them over to the archives.
A call by the African Union to get permanent representation to the United Nations Security Council hit a snag Wednesday as it failed to get the endorsement from China's new Foreign Minister Qin Gang. Speaking at the opening of the new Chinese-built headquarters of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, Qin emphasized his country's partnership in security matters and economic development. African Union Commission Chairman Musa Faki Mohammed called called Africa's lack of a permanent representation at the Security Council a burning issue, as most issues on the Council agenda are usually related to African countries. The Chinese foreign minister, now on a week-long trip to Africa, will also visit Egypt, Angola, Benin and Gabon. The government has conducted an interdepartmental drill to enhance Hong Kong's emergency preparedness in case of a radiation leak at the Daya Bay nuclear power plant in Guangdong. Frontline departments simulated rescue work on those injured in a nuclear accident. In the mock exercise, a monitoring center was set up at Ma Liu Shui Pier for radiation screening of evacuees. Overseeing the drill was Secretary for Security Chris Tang. Apart from using drones for search and rescue efforts, the operation also deployed Fireboat 7, which has the capability to handle radiological and nuclear incidents. That's the news. Thanks for watching.